All right, let's talk about crushing the tower. First of all, you're going to be asked to take 3 sets of pictures. You need to have a picture from the side, you need to have a picture from the top, and then you need to have a picture of your group members and the tower. We're going to use those for thank you notes to McDonald's. Next, Mr. Farron or the sub is going to measure how tall your tower is with a meter stick. And remember, it had to be a minimum of 30 centimeters, so we're just going to verify that. Please bring your lab report over with you when you come to crush your tower by the plywood. And the purpose in doing that is we just want to make a couple of quick checks. We're going to cross-check and make sure that the tower that you're actually crushing matches the tower that you did the math for. So I should be able to look at the side view and see 2 X's on the side view, and then I should be able to look at the top and see that it's a triangle with single pillars, that type of thing. We're also going to check a couple other things in the math section, matching angles. You have pluses and minuses where they're supposed to be, and you've used your grams. If any of those are incorrect, you will be sent back to fix them before crushing occurs. So that's going to happen first. Remember that your goal is 30 pounds. If you surpass 30 pounds, then you will be given extra credit points. The first 30 pounds will be point for point. So if you got 5 pounds, then you're going to get 5 points. If you have 20 pounds, you're going to get 20 points. If you have 30 pounds, you're going to get 30 points. Anything above that will kind of be based on how everybody else's goes. You'll get some extra credit points, but it's not a point per pound, just for the record. Okay? So there are some weights in the room, and I apologize. You're going to have a good chuckle with this one because I'm using paper plates for weights, but you'll get the idea. There are 3 5-pounders. There are 2 that look exactly identical, and there's one that's a little bit smaller in the room. So that's a total of 15 pounds. Those are the round ones. And then there are several, 6 to be exact, of the 2.5-pounders. So 2 of these makes 5, 10, 15 pounds. If you use all of those little guys right there, you'll get 30 pounds. So that would be my goal, and I usually tell students to start with those, and then we use those other odd duck ones after we've reached the 30 pounds. You can decide how you want to put on the weights, but I always try to recommend to students that you put a little on at a time so that you get a few points and then a few more points and then a few more points as you go. So here's how it would work. Typically speaking, most towers are going to hold 5 pounds, so I usually grab one of those 5-pounders and I would put it on there. As soon as you let go, the person that is testing your tower is going to count 1 apple, 2 apple, 3 apple, 4 apple, all the way up to 10 apple. In English, you have to hold that weight for 10 pounds, or for 10 seconds. Then, if you held that 5 pounds, they would have a sheet of paper that they're going to record on. So if this group was Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear, 5 would be written right here next to the name. That would indicate how many pounds that they held so far. Now, you can grab another weight. If you want, you could grab a 2.5er, you could grab another 5, however you want to do it. I'm going to grab another 5, and I'm going to put it on there. Now, again, as soon as I let it go, then we can start counting. 1 apple, 2 apple, 3 apple, all the way up to 10 apple. If I were to hold that much weight, that's 10 pounds. After I held it, the person recording would cross off the 5 and put a 10 there because now you've held 10 pounds. So let's say you're feeling pretty confident. Yep, this is looking pretty good. So what you're going to do is you're going to put on another 5. So you put on another 5 and you're going to, again, as soon as you let go, 1 apple, 2 apple, 3 apple, all the way up to 10 apple. And then you can start putting on 5s, or 2.5s, excuse me. You can do it a couple of different ways. You can take 1 2.5er and put it on there and then start the count. Or you could go ahead and put 2 2.5ers on there, and then we could start the count after that. So 1 apple, 2 apple, up to 10 apple. This would be 5, 10, 15. We would be up to 20 pounds right now. So we would cross off that 10 and write a 20. Now let's say our tower is looking kind of wobbly and we're kind of like unsure. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just one of those 2.5ers. We would put it on there, count up to 10 apple. So now instead of 20, you would have 22.5. And yes, I will give out half points. So that would be perfectly fine. Now, what happens if your tower starts to tip, for example? If you look at my tower right here and you carefully look at this pillar is actually kind of curving. It's bowed. And I have a second one, if I turn it, that is also bowed. And it'll look better from, I don't know which angle, but you can kind of tell right here that it's bowed. So what if my weights started tipping? What if they started tipping towards this corner? So here's what you can do. Let's say you've got the 5 on there, and the 5 was perfectly fine. And let's say you've got the 10 on there, and the 10 was perfectly fine. But now when you put the next weight on, it started tipping towards this corner. If it were me, I might do a couple of different things. I could go with some smaller weights, or I could try a 5. But when I try the 5, I want to go away from that corner and put my weight so it's off of the side. And a lot of times you don't need to do it very much. Sometimes I tell students, put your hands on here and just kind of slide it until you feel like, okay, it's good. And then again, once you let go, you can hold your hands here and we're okay. We'll start counting, okay? If you need to grab it really quick, go ahead and grab it. You can pull the weights right off. You can reposition them at any time. You can swap out weights at any time. So if you decide, well, these 2 were good, but I don't know about that 5, you want to swap out and you want to go with a 2.5 first, you can do that because you have a little more control as to where that 2.5 can go. So sometimes that helps. I also always recommend that there's a person who places the weights on, and then there's a second person who I would call the spotter. They're there just holding their hands just in case those weights start to tip off. If you quickly grab them, if your tower is just tipping over, you can take the weights off and reposition them and place them on at any time. If your tower is actually, the straw is actually bending, then that's a whole different story that you're pretty much done at that point, okay? You probably won't hold much more weight. But if it's just tipping, you can pull off those weights really quick, and that's the spotter's job in my mind. If you'll notice down here, I have a pin who's pushing away. If at any point during the thing, if you want to take and, push that pin back in, you're welcome to do that as long as it doesn't take you all day. All right, we don't want this crush to take forever. But pushing pins in real quickly is perfectly legal. Once your tower crushes, once a straw bends, then you're kind of done. You're going to have a final weight. So let's suppose that mine was at 22.5. My paper, my design, and the weight I hold, remember, adds up to 100 points. And the design was worth 30 points. The paper was worth 40 points. So if I got all of those points, and you should because we double checked them twice, that's 70. So then this would be a 92.5. That would be an A-. Actually a 92.5 would round up to a 93, so that would be an A. But anyway, if things are tipping, you can do that as well.